What if the reason people disrespect you isn't because you're weak, but because you've been taught the wrong way to respond? Most people believe respect is earned by being nicer, explaining themselves better, staying patient, or proving their value over and over again. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more desperately someone seeks respect, the less of it they often receive. Sounds unfair, doesn't it? Yet psychology has been revealing this pattern for decades, and Machiavelli understood it centuries ago. Every day, people unknowingly fail invisible tests. Not the obvious ones, the subtle ones. A sarcastic comment, a boundary crossed just this once. A moment where silence should have replaced explanation. These small moments determine how others perceive your self-respect, your confidence, and your psychological power, far more than any speech you could ever give. The good news is that destroying disrespect doesn't require becoming aggressive, rude, or emotionally cold. In fact, some of the most powerful people in the world use a completely different strategy. They understand the art of strategic silence. They understand boundaries. They understand emotional detachment. And because of that, they rarely need to fight for respect. It naturally follows them. In this video, you'll discover why people test you, how manipulation works beneath the surface of everyday interactions, and how to develop the kind of quiet strength that makes others think twice before crossing the line. By the end, you'll see respect through an entirely different lens, and you may never respond to disrespect the same way again. Most people believe disrespect starts with a big insult, a public humiliation, or some obvious act of aggression. But psychology reveals something much more subtle. In reality, disrespect usually begins with tiny tests that seem harmless at first. A sarcastic comment, a joke at someone's expense, an interruption during a conversation, or a favor that is never reciprocated. These moments often look insignificant, yet they function like silent probes. People are constantly gathering information about where someone stands in the social hierarchy. As Machiavelli understood centuries ago, human beings rarely reveal their intentions openly. Instead, they test, observe, and adjust their behavior based on what they learn. Imagine a person who constantly apologizes for things that aren't even their fault. At first, others may see them as polite, but over time, something changes. People begin assuming responsibility can be shifted onto them. Their opinions receive less weight, their needs are pushed aside. What started as kindness slowly transforms into permission for others to overstep. This is where self-respect becomes visible or invisible. Most people never realize they're teaching others how to treat them every single day. Every tolerated act of disrespect becomes a silent lesson. And unfortunately, people tend to remember the lessons that require the least resistance. A mentor once explained it with a simple analogy. He said, social interactions are a bit like fences around a property. Nobody walks up and tears down an entire fence on day one. Instead, they test a loose board, then another, then another. If nothing happens, they assume the property is unprotected. Boundaries work exactly the same way. The absence of clear boundaries invites further intrusion. It's rarely personal at the beginning. It's simply human nature responding to available opportunities. That's why many people feel shocked when disrespect escalates. They only notice the problem when the fence was already gone. What's fascinating is that fear of conflict often plays a major role in this process. Many individuals believe avoiding confrontation will preserve peace. Ironically, it often creates the opposite result. Every time someone remains silent out of fear rather than choice, they experience a small act of self-betrayal. At first, the emotional cost seems minor. But over months and years, those moments accumulate. Confidence weakens, self-trust erodes. The person begins doubting their own perceptions. Psychology calls this a reinforcement cycle. The less they defend their values, the less valuable those values begin to feel internally. Consider a common workplace situation. A colleague repeatedly interrupts someone during meetings. The first time, it seems accidental. The second time, it feels annoying. By the 10th time, it has become a pattern. Yet many people respond by speaking softer, waiting longer, or convincing themselves they're overreacting. The result is predictable. The interruptions increase because the behavior encounters no resistance. Machiavelli often emphasized that people pay close attention to what is tolerated, not because they're evil, but because human beings instinctively search for limits. Where there is no visible limit, they assume none exists. The deeper truth is that disrespect is often less about the aggressor and more about perception. People unconsciously measure certainty, conviction, and psychological power. They watch how someone responds under pressure. They observe whether a person protects their own values. Curiously, the strongest responses are not always loud or dramatic. In fact, the individuals who command the most respect often appear remarkably calm. They don't rush to defend themselves. They don't panic. They don't chase approval. And hidden inside that observation lies a surprising principle. Sometimes, the most powerful response isn't a response at all. Something called strategic silence begins to change the entire game. Most people have been conditioned to believe that strength means reacting immediately. Someone disrespects them, and they feel an urge to defend themselves, explain themselves, or prove their worth. It feels natural. After all, nobody enjoys being challenged. Yet, psychology reveals a counterintuitive truth. Emotional reactions often give the aggressor exactly what they were seeking, whether the person wanted attention, control, or confirmation of their influence. A strong emotional response provides valuable information. It tells them they found a button, and more importantly, that the button works. This is why strategic silence has been used throughout history by powerful individuals who understood the dynamics of psychological power. Think about a pond on a calm morning. Throw a stone into the water, and ripples immediately spread across the surface. Most people behave like that pond. A criticism arrives, and the emotional ripple becomes visible for everyone to see. But imagine dropping the same stone into a deep canyon, where the sound simply disappears into silence. Suddenly, the expected reaction never comes. The aggressor becomes uncertain. Their prediction fails. Human beings are uncomfortable when they cannot accurately predict outcomes. That's one reason why strategic silence often creates more influence than a perfectly crafted argument. Silence forces others to confront their own assumptions. A practical example can be seen in everyday conversations. Someone makes a passive-aggressive remark disguised as a joke. Most people rush to defend themselves or laugh nervously to reduce tension. But a person who understands emotional detachment may simply maintain calm eye contact and allow a few seconds of silence to fill the space. It's remarkable how often the other person begins explaining themselves. The discomfort shifts, the spotlight moves. Without saying a word, the dynamic changes. The silence itself becomes a message. It communicates certainty, self-control, and an unwillingness to participate in unnecessary games. This doesn't mean becoming cold, arrogant, or emotionally disconnected from life. Emotional detachment is frequently misunderstood. It isn't the absence of feelings. It's the ability to experience feelings without becoming controlled by them. Imagine a captain steering a ship through rough waters. The waves still exist. The storm is real. But the captain doesn't hand the wheel to the storm. In the same way, emotionally strong individuals acknowledge anger, frustration, and disappointment without allowing those emotions to dictate their behavior. That ability quietly reinforces self-respect because it proves they are in charge of themselves first. Machiavelli repeatedly observed that people are influenced not only by actions but also by appearances. A person who remains composed under pressure appears difficult to manipulate. Others begin sensing invisible boundaries even when no words are spoken. Interestingly, many conflicts lose momentum when they fail to receive emotional fuel. Arguments often survive because both sides keep feeding them. Remove one source of fuel, and the fire gradually weakens. This is why some of the most respected individuals seem almost impossible to provoke. They choose their battles carefully, and they refuse to waste energy proving themselves to people who have already decided not to understand them. Yet silence alone is not enough. There are moments when silence becomes wisdom, and moments when it becomes avoidance. Understanding that distinction requires a deeper awareness of human behavior. Why do some people push boundaries repeatedly? Why do certain individuals seem to thrive on subtle manipulation and status competition? The answer leads into a more strategic way of seeing people, one that Machiavelli would have recognized immediately. To master respect, a person must first learn to recognize the hidden games being played beneath the surface of everyday interactions. Before we continue, there's something you should know. If what you've heard so far resonates with you, if you've started to realize how people silently test your boundaries, measure your self-respect, and respond to your reactions, then you'll want to read the Silent Influence Code. Inside, you'll discover the psychological signals that shape how people perceive, trust, and respond to you, inspired by timeless Machiavellian principles and modern psychology. It's a practical guide to developing the quiet influence, emotional control, and presence that naturally earn respect. If you're ready to understand the hidden rules behind human behavior, click the link in the pinned comment and get access now. Let's continue. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming disrespect is always personal. In many cases, it has very little to do with them. Psychology shows that a surprising amount of disrespect originates from insecurity, status anxiety, and the constant human desire to measure one's position against others. Someone may interrupt, criticize, mock, or undermine another person not because they are strong, but because they feel threatened. The problem is that most people interpret these behaviors emotionally instead of strategically. Machiavelli understood that anyone who wishes to navigate social life effectively must learn to see beyond appearances. Like a fox, they must learn to observe before reacting. Imagine two people walking into the same room. One immediately absorbs the emotions of everyone around them. If someone is hostile, they become anxious. If someone is critical, they become defensive. The other person notices the same behaviors but remains emotionally separate from them. This is what can be called cold empathy. It is the ability to understand what others are feeling without carrying those feelings home like an unwanted suitcase. Emotional detachment allows a person to study behavior objectively. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they begin asking, "What is motivating this behavior?" That single shift can completely transform how they experience social interactions. A common example appears in passive-aggressive communication. Someone says, "Wow, you're surprisingly confident today," or "I guess you finally got lucky." On the surface, these comments seem harmless, yet hidden beneath them is an attempt to lower another person's status while maintaining plausible deniability. If confronted, the speaker can always claim they were joking. This is why such tactics are so effective. They create confusion. A person who lacks awareness often becomes trapped, trying to prove the comment was offensive. Meanwhile, the manipulator remains protected. Recognizing these patterns is one of the first steps toward preserving self-respect and maintaining psychological power. One technique that experienced negotiators and psychologists often discuss is called fogging. The idea is surprisingly simple. Instead of resisting an attack directly, a person partially agrees without surrendering their position. Imagine someone says, "You think you're smarter than everyone else," rather than defending themselves aggressively. They might calmly respond, "That's an interesting perspective." Notice what happens. The attack loses momentum because there is no resistance to push against. It's like punching a cloud. The aggressor expected a fight, and instead encounters calm neutrality. Strategic silence often works alongside this approach, creating uncertainty where conflict was expected. A wise mentor once compared manipulation to fishing. The bait only works when the fish bites. Manipulators rely on predictable emotional responses. They expect anger, insecurity, guilt, or the need for approval. When those reactions fail to appear, their influence weakens dramatically. This doesn't mean becoming suspicious of everyone. It simply means developing awareness. Psychology repeatedly demonstrates that people who understand social dynamics are less vulnerable to them. They stop treating every comment as a personal attack and start viewing behavior as information. That perspective alone can save years of unnecessary frustration. But observation without action eventually becomes weakness, disguised as wisdom. A fox may recognize danger, but recognition alone does not establish respect. At some point, there must be visible boundaries. There must be consequences. There must be moments when a person decides what behavior will and will not be tolerated. Understanding manipulation is only half of the equation. The next step requires a different kind of strength, less like the fox and more like the lion, calm yet unmistakably powerful when the moment demands it. Many people confuse strength with aggression. They imagine that powerful individuals dominate every conversation, raise their voices, or constantly prove themselves. Yet psychology suggests something far more effective. Real strength is usually quiet, controlled, and deliberate. A lion does not spend its day reminding the jungle that it is a lion. Its presence speaks for itself. In the same way, people who possess genuine self-respect rarely feel the need to win every argument. They understand that power is not measured by how loudly someone reacts, but by how clearly they protect what matters. This distinction sits at the heart of psychological power. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that boundaries are not requests. They are conditions. Many people spend years explaining their feelings, hoping others will finally understand and change. They have long conversations, give endless second chances, and repeat the same concerns over and over, yet nothing improves. Why? Because boundaries without consequences are merely suggestions. If someone repeatedly crosses a line and nothing happens afterward, the line slowly disappears. Machiavelli observed that people often respect what is enforced more than what is explained. While explanations have value, they lose their effectiveness when they are never supported by action. Consider a simple example. A friend constantly cancels plans at the last minute, but expects immediate availability whenever they need something. One person complains, yet continues accepting the behavior. Another calmly adjusts their level of availability. They stop prioritizing someone who repeatedly shows a lack of consideration. Notice the difference. The second person does not create drama. They do not seek revenge. They simply allow consequences to exist. Over time, people begin understanding that access to their time, attention, and energy is not unlimited. That realization often changes behavior more effectively than any emotional confrontation ever could. This is where emotional detachment becomes essential. Many individuals know they should establish boundaries, but guilt prevents them from following through. They worry about disappointing others. They fear being misunderstood. They become trapped in the need to be liked. Yet every meaningful boundary requires accepting temporary discomfort. A mentor once compared it to pruning a tree. Removing unhealthy branches may look harsh in the moment, but it allows the tree to grow stronger. Likewise, protecting personal standards may create short-term tension while producing long-term peace. Emotional maturity often means choosing respect over immediate approval. Interestingly, some of the strongest demonstrations of power involve walking away. Modern culture frequently celebrates persistence, but there are situations where persistence becomes self-destruction. Staying in toxic friendships, unhealthy relationships, or disrespectful environments often communicates the wrong message. It tells others that no matter how poorly they behave, access will remain available. Machiavelli understood leverage better than most. Leverage is not created through force alone. It often emerges from the willingness to leave situations that undermine one's values. When people realize they can no longer take someone for granted, the entire dynamic begins to shift. Yet there is something even more important than setting boundaries with others. Many people successfully remove toxic influences from their lives but continue battling an invisible enemy within themselves. They still doubt their worth. They still break promises to themselves. They still seek validation from people whose opinions should no longer matter. This reveals a deeper truth. External respect is fragile when internal respect is missing. To truly become unshakable, a person must build something stronger than social approval, a foundation of self-respect that exists regardless of who is watching. Many people spend years trying to change how others see them while completely overlooking how they see themselves. It's a strange paradox. They want respect, admiration, and recognition, yet their internal dialogue is filled with doubt, criticism, and broken promises. Psychology suggests that external treatment often mirrors internal standards more than most people realize. This doesn't mean every act of disrespect is deserved. Far from it. But the way a person responds to disrespect is heavily influenced by what they secretly believe they are worth. Self-respect begins long before anyone else enters the picture. It starts in the quiet moments when nobody is watching. A wise teacher once said that confidence is not built through positive thinking alone. Confidence is built through evidence. Every time a person keeps a promise to themselves, they collect evidence that they can be trusted. Every time they abandon a commitment, they collect evidence in the opposite direction. Imagine someone who promises to wake up early, exercise, learn a new skill, or stop tolerating unhealthy behavior. The specific goal matters less than the consistency behind it. Over time, self-discipline becomes more than a habit. It becomes proof. And proof is one of the strongest foundations of psychological power. Many people underestimate the connection between discipline and personal authority. They think authority comes from status, money, appearance, or charisma. While those things can influence perception, they rarely create lasting strength. True authority develops when a person learns to lead themselves. Machiavelli understood that no kingdom can remain stable if its ruler lacks control over their own actions. The same principle applies on a personal level. Someone who cannot manage their impulses becomes vulnerable to every distraction, temptation, and emotional storm that crosses their path. Self-mastery creates stability, and stability naturally attracts respect. Consider a simple real-world example. Two people face the same challenge. One immediately searches for excuses. The other searches for solutions. Neither person controls the situation itself, but each controls their response. Over months and years, these small decisions accumulate. One individual gradually becomes more resilient, while the other becomes more dependent on circumstances. Psychology repeatedly shows that people admire reliability. They trust those who remain steady under pressure. This reliability is not something that can be faked. It emerges from daily choices, repeated quietly until they become part of someone's identity. An interesting shift occurs when self-respect begins growing from within. A person becomes less desperate for validation. They no longer need every conversation to end in approval. They stop explaining themselves to people who have already decided not to listen. Emotional detachment becomes easier because their sense of worth is no longer tied to outside opinions. Ironically, this is often when others begin showing more respect, not because the person demanded it, but because they stopped chasing it. People are naturally drawn toward individuals who possess a calm certainty about who they are. Yet even a strong foundation is only the beginning. There remains a deeper layer of development that many never explore. Hidden beneath discipline, confidence, and self-respect lies a part of human nature that is often ignored, feared, or suppressed. Psychology refers to it in different ways, but its influence is undeniable. Those who learn to understand and integrate this hidden side gain a level of strength that cannot easily be shaken. And that is where the final stage of mastery begins. Most people spend their lives trying to appear strong. Very few dedicate themselves to becoming strong. The difference is enormous. Appearance depends on the opinions of others, while genuine strength is built internally. Psychology teaches that every human being possesses qualities they proudly display and qualities they prefer to hide. The hidden side often contains anger, ambition, competitiveness, fear, and desires that don't fit the image they want the world to see. Ignoring these aspects does not eliminate them. It simply pushes them into the shadows, where they continue influencing behavior without conscious awareness. True psychological power begins when a person stops running from these parts of themselves. Machiavelli understood something that many people still struggle to accept. Human nature is complex. A person can be kind without being weak. They can be compassionate without being naive. They can be peaceful without becoming defenseless. Yet many individuals grow up believing they must choose between being good and being powerful. As a result, they suppress their ability to protect themselves. They avoid conflict at all costs. They become uncomfortable with assertiveness. Over time, they lose access to important strengths that could help them navigate difficult situations. Real maturity comes from integration, not denial. Imagine a skilled swordsmith forging a blade. The metal must pass through intense heat before becoming useful. In a similar way, character is forged through uncomfortable experiences. Every time someone establishes boundaries despite fear, they become stronger. Every time they refuse manipulation, they become wiser. Every time they maintain self-respect in situations where approval would be easier, they develop courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act correctly despite fear. Like a muscle, courage grows stronger every time it is exercised. One of the greatest transformations occurs when a person stops measuring their value through the opinions of others. This sounds simple, yet it is one of the hardest challenges in modern life. Social media, workplace dynamics, relationships, and even family expectations constantly encourage comparison. People become trapped chasing approval from individuals who are often struggling with their own insecurities. Emotional detachment offers an alternative path. Instead of allowing external opinions to define reality, a person learns to evaluate themselves according to their principles, actions, and standards. This shift creates a kind of freedom that many spend their entire lives seeking. A mentor once shared an observation that stayed with his students for years. He said the strongest person in the room is often the one who has the least need to prove anything. They don't compete for attention. They don't panic when criticized. They don't become intoxicated by praise. Their stability comes from within. This is the natural result of combining self-respect, boundaries, strategic silence, and emotional detachment. These qualities work together like pillars supporting a structure. Remove one, and the foundation weakens. Strengthen all of them, and the person becomes remarkably difficult to manipulate. Ultimately, respect cannot be demanded, negotiated, or forced into existence. People may comply with pressure, but genuine respect arises when strength is consistently embodied. The individual who masters themselves gains something far more valuable than influence over others. They gain influence over their own thoughts, emotions, decisions, and future. And once that level of mastery is achieved, the games that once seemed overwhelming begin to lose their power entirely. Now the question is no longer whether people will test you. They will. The real question is, who will you become when those moments arrive? Will you continue explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you? Will you keep sacrificing your self-respect to avoid temporary discomfort? Or will you begin building the kind of psychological power that comes from knowing exactly where your boundaries stand and having the courage to protect them? Remember, respect is rarely won through force. It is earned through consistency. Through strategic silence when emotions try to take control. Through emotional detachment when manipulation seeks a reaction. Through discipline when excuses seem easier. And through the quiet confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself, even when nobody else is watching. Machiavelli understood that power begins with self-mastery. The person who cannot govern their own emotions will always struggle to govern the direction of their life. But the person who learns to remain calm under pressure, to walk away from what diminishes them, and to stand firmly behind their values becomes incredibly difficult to control. So take a moment and be honest with yourself. Where in your life have you been tolerating disrespect? What boundary have you been afraid to enforce? Who would you become if you stopped seeking approval and started demanding more from yourself instead? Drop your answer in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future lessons on psychology. Machiavelli, self-respect, strategic silence, emotional detachment, and the hidden dynamics of psychological power. The next level of strength isn't waiting for someone to respect you. It's becoming the kind of person who no longer depends on it.